It very much fits, doesn't it, into the Trump administration's narrative at the moment that it is left-wingers who are behind much of the political violence.
I wonder how Donald Trump's gear change, I suppose, position change has been received in America, Harriet, because it does step away from domestic issues, America first.
Yes, that's right. But there are a lot of more conservative, traditional Republicans who are very much welcoming this. People like Tom Cotton of Arkansas, senator. He said that it's absolutely a step in the right direction because there is still quite a lot of goodwill for Ukraine in the United States. And there is a growing sense of frustration at Vladimir Putin. That's pretty widespread in Congress. And the fact that America rolled out the red carpet for Vladimir Putin in Alaska, and people thought that there was real momentum, that things could perhaps improve. Trump talked, do you remember, about having a meeting with Putin in the coming weeks, and yet that has all fizzled. So I think Trump is in step with the mood in Washington, D.C. when he says that he's lost patience with Putin. And I think this idea that Ukraine could win back all of its land is actually quite welcome to a lot of people within the US itself.
Yeah, look, Zelensky made some references to Trump in his UN speech today. He thanked him, welcomed Trump's backing as a positive step to force Russia to the negotiating table. He even referenced Donald Trump's own brush with death on the campaign trail last year, didn't he? Saying God saved him from a murder attempt.
Yes, that was some quite deft diplomacy there from Zelensky, because Trump will be thrilled to have heard Zelensky saying that he was saved by God to carry out his mission. But you know, the truth is that Zelensky very much needs to keep Donald Trump on side. He said yesterday that he was actually quite surprised that Trump was so favorable to his long-standing demands that Ukraine reclaim the territory that Russia has seized since the 2022 invasion. Zelensky's pleasantly surprised, and he's seeking to sort of capitalize on that momentum that Trump generated, quite surprisingly, yesterday. So today, Zelensky saying, we need more weapons. We need your support. And now he's got to try and actually seal that deal.
Yeah, certainly. He said it is, effectively weapons and not words. He sort of, said the time for diplomacy was over, and that really when you're dealing with Russia, only weapons will count, which is, it was a very direct message, I think. Let's move on to this shooting at an ICE facility in Texas. 2 people have died. A gunman opened fire at a Department of Homeland Security facility in Dallas, Texas. 2 detainees were killed and a third is in a critical condition. The suspected gunman has died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Speaking at a law enforcement event in North Carolina in the last hour, the Vice President J.D Vance said this.
What we know is that in Dallas, Texas, an ICE facility, an Immigrations and Customs Enforcement facility, was opened fire upon by a violent left-wing extremist, a person who wrote anti-ICE messaging on their bullets. And there's some evidence that we have that's not yet public, but we know this person was politically motivated. They were politically motivated to go after law enforcement. They were politically motivated to go after people who are enforcing our border.
Is he blaming the Democrats here? Is he blaming, extreme left-wing beliefs?
I mean, it very much fits, doesn't it, into the Trump administration's narrative at the moment that it is left-wingers who are behind much of the political violence. That, of course, coming after the murder of Charlie Kirk, which is when the Trump administration were immediately saying left-wing people are behind almost all of the violence in the United States. The motives for this gunman, he's been named as Joshua Jan. He's a 29-year-old.
We should say, sorry, Harriet, that there's no confirmation from law enforcement that this is a violent left-wing extremist, by the way. We have got a name, haven't we? Joshua Jan. That is according to NBC. They're citing lots of senior law enforcement officials. But again, absolutely no evidence that this is a left-wing extremist.
Right, and Kash Patel, the FBI director, he tweeted a photo of what he said was ammunition recovered from the scene, and it said on one of the bullets, "anti-ICE," those words. So that would be where people like J.D. Vance are getting it from. Jan's brother Noah has told NBC News that his brother Joshua was not political, he didn't think. And initially, when this happened, it was very much unclear what even the target was, because it was actually migrants, we believe, who were killed rather than law enforcement officers. No law enforcement officers were harmed during this. So it is as of yet unclear what the motivations were.
Yeah, the House Democratic leadership has said political violence has reached breaking point. This is not an isolated incident. There have been threats to other facilities, haven't there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and also to this facility, on August 25th, a man was arrested at this particular place in Dallas for making a bomb threat. He had turned up at this site and said he was going to detonate a suicide vest. He's been arrested. And nearby, in another Texan town called Alvarado, 10 people were arrested after a law enforcement officer was shot in the neck at an immigration detention center. So this is certainly not uncommon. It's not unheard of. And it's not just happening in Texas. Last week in Chicago, protesters against an ICE facility were tear gassed. And in New York City, you had 10 local politicians who were arrested while protesting at an immigration court. So there's a lot of tension and really, high feelings, passion around this issue.
Yeah. How many detainees are there in Texas specifically? I wonder what the local population thinks. Of course, Texas sits on the border between Mexico and the United States. The Rio Grande River is a big crossing point, isn't it? I know the Times has done a lot of reporting on this. Louise Callahan went to that border during the election campaign and talked about huge swathes of people getting across. It's something Donald Trump has made a point of clamping down on, and that he's done. But it means, how many detainees are sort of stuck in facilities, if you see what I mean? Do we have any idea, Harriet?
Well, they are being held across the country, not just in Texas, of course. But Texas has a very large Hispanic population. It also has a lot of guns. It's very easy to access guns in Texas, so that is certainly a factor. It's an interesting one, Texas, because there's a lot of people who've been there for generations and who are Hispanic origin, who are very uncomfortable with these raids going on across the US. Where people are being rounded up and held, even if they are US citizens or green card holders. And that is happening nationwide and will certainly be felt in places like Texas. So it all just adds to this sort of frenzied, febrile atmosphere across the country where people are feeling very passionately on all sides.
Yeah. I wonder what happens if it turns out that this shooter is not a violent left-wing extremist. Does that mean that J.D. Vance gets the same treatment as Jimmy Kimmel, who also said something that was wrong and was thrown off? He was suspended from his TV show. Who knows? I suspect the treatment might be slightly different. We also don't know whether Vance is right or wrong at the moment, of course. The good news for Jimmy Kimmel, at least, is he's back on US TV screens.
I've been hearing a lot about what I need to say and do tonight. And the truth is, I don't think what I have to say is going to make much of a difference. If you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. I have no illusions about changing anyone's mind. But I do want to make something clear because it's important to me as a human. And that is, you understand that it was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man.
Yeah, well, fighting back tears, as you can hear. He gave a tearful opening monologue after a week-long suspension for comments he made about the right-wing activist Charlie Kirk's death. Harriet, celebrities have really, rallied round Kimmel. Is this being seen as a victory for free speech that he's back on the screens, or is this just simply Disney, the network owner, backtracking because of a sizable backlash?
I think it is being seen as a victory for free speech. Kimmel, he was quite emotional, as we heard, when he talked about his motivations for making that joke last week. He said that he saw in hindsight that it was perhaps ill-judged, but he certainly didn't apologize for making it. And he went on to say that he felt very strongly that being American, being in the United States, meant that you were free to criticize, to joke, to laugh at people in power, which is what he felt that he was doing. And he said that he had spoken to a lot of comedians over the course of his career in places like Russia, in various authoritarian countries where they weren't at liberty to laugh at those in power. And he said that's what makes America a great country. So I think, Disney, which of course is the parent company of ABC, they are very much hoping that this will all go away because it's been very uncomfortable for them. But it's not going away because in the United States, there are various regional networks which have the broadcasting rights for ABC, and they've not all come back on air with Kimmel's show. So, it was back on air in some parts of the country, but not nationwide. So the debate will certainly continue.
Yeah, I wonder whether they will relent or not, whether they'll sort of slowly bring him back or not. We'll see. Harriet, thank you so much for being with us. US reporter Harriet Alexander.